Hey y'all, it's Steve, Hobo with Wood, and we are hanging live with Hobo. I hope everybody's had a wonderful week. I hope you had a good Valentine's Day. I hope more than your milk had an expiration, or I'm hope I hope more than your milk had a date for Valentine's Day. Uh, so we got a good number of people here, and it's been a weird couple of weeks because it's the third week in a row going 9 p.m. and I know it's last week was supposed to be 3, but schedules have been really messed up these last few weeks, and they're not got any better. I missed doing any videos this week, so I appreciate you being here tonight. And we're going to talk about this. I did this today just before going live. This is a take on the Hangin with Hobo hanger that I did. See if I can pull that up real fast. Let's see here. Some of you, if you're in the Hobo with Wood group on Facebook, you've already seen it. If you're not, then you need to jump over there and sign up, join up. It's free and lots of shared information between other creators. Let's see here. Switch. So there was the first version, and it's obviously a wall hanger. And Kingdom Laser Works there. Awesome job. But we switched that from a wall hanger to a shelf setter, and I switched up the artwork a little bit from welcome to beloved, and changed the artwork on the gnomes a little. They are unique, other than, and they're similar. And we're going to talk about the process I went through in creating this. Started out with just SVGs for the gnomes, and then it was able to create from a single SVG the 4-layer gnome, and then the artwork, and how, if you opt to get the file from Hobo with Wood website, how you can customize it. And I even included with the design a pair of bare hands. They're like these little gnomies, they're holding hearts. So you didn't want them holding hearts. Maybe you wanted them holding shamrocks, or you wanted to holding a beer or a cocktail glass, whatever. There's a pair of hands in the design that you can weld your own object into that design. But there are some roadblocks that we're going to talk about here in a few minutes about what to be aware of when you do that, and to prevent from going through a whole lot of steps only to find out it didn't fit, it didn't work. So we're going to go over that, and I'll answer any questions you've got regarding these designs, the design process, or any other general questions that you may have had pop up in your week. Or I haven't had any I haven't had a whole lot of time this week to help others, so there, and honestly, if I did, I don't remember it. So I don't have any shared experiences to pull from this week. Been very, very hectic in the Hobo world this week. I'm not even sure what day it was. It wasn't, I don't think it was, well, I guess it was part of yesterday. One day I worked 21 hours straight. Might have been day before yesterday. 21. I got up at 5:30 in the morning, started working in the house, and didn't finish with this. And then I had to finish the Hanging with Hobo wall hanger, and I worked until 2 a.m. getting that cut, tested, and had proof of concept, and then went to bed a little after 2. So 21 hours that day. But this is my job. You are my job. I work for you. So I'm your monkey. Watch me dance. So I thank you for being here. Thank you for coming and hanging out tonight. And like I said, I'm gonna look and see at the comments and see if there's anything right out of the gate. And then we're going to look at these two designs, the two different versions, and go over a real quick. I'm not going to walk through the entire process of this because The only really tricky part is how do you take a single SVG, a single design of a line drawing, and turn that into the multiple layers on on the gnomes or whatever it is you're going to be working with. As you can see here, I got 4 layers there to make this guy up. And I don't know, do you like it or do you think it's tacky? The ear hair, I kind of like it, especially on the wall hanger. The wall hanger I was like, okay, a unique way to hang it, put the string through there and then have the string come through and then fray it out like ear hair. I thought it was a neat concept. I haven't seen it done, but you feel free to do it. And I'm not going to get mad at you and say, oh, you stole my idea. I encourage you to do stuff like that. So let's see here. A lot of y'all showed up early. Let's see. Well, hello, there's Rusty Three Nails. Congrats on getting your business going there. Let's see. Of course, we got Chris in the house. Thank you for being here, Chris. Looking just for any questions or comments. In fact, just for giggles, I know that probably right now we're just under 80 of you here, and I'll bet you every one of you, this ain't your first time. This is probably not your first time chiming in, but if any of you happen to be, let's see, banners, when you're in the Hobo with Wood live chat stream, if there's something that comes up that you're wanting to ask a question about and you want me to address it, you need to precede those questions with the question mark. Question mark first, then your question. That jumps out at me and makes me see it in the comment stream. Same thing if it's just a comment like, hey, dum, don't do it that way. Put 3 exclamation points in there and that'll jump out at me. So pay attention to that right there. But like I said, and probably a bunch of I see a lot of the regulars here tonight, and I really do appreciate you being here. Well, good on you there. Perfect day in paradise, Kevin. Great. Or not Kevin, Dale. And Dale, I think it was your order that went out today. I'm pretty sure. Anybody who had orders come in for hearts during the week last week, you should have either already got them or they went out today. So even though my world's been upheaved, I've been keeping things going. I haven't let anything fall through the gaps. Looking. All right, we're good. Andy says you helped me on Sunday, and I really appreciate it. Well, I'm happy to. Always happy to. Yes, Miss Gigi's always in the house. Fortunately, she's very, very quiet and well behaved. And when she's not, I have to heed that warning immediately. Because when she speaks, I got to go. Because she don't speak unless it's an emergency. So marking my spot. And let's jump over here to LightBurn and look at these designs, or this one in the wall hanger real quick, so you can see how they will download if you go and get these files from the website. So this one is the shelf setter, and it can be cut out of 300 by 300 pieces of material. And this one is the backboard, their main piece, if you will. And the first thing I'll caution you is that tool path right there is absolutely necessary. If you get this, you're going, I don't know what that's in my way. And you select it and then you delete it. Oh, that was duplicate there. Select that one and delete that one. Well, now you just got rid of your text because the text is assigned to path. So I was not aware that there was a duplicate toolpath there, which is not a problem. But make sure that you are aware that that toolpath it has that text on it. And the beautiful part about that is if you do not like having that particular text on there and you want to change it, maybe you are a former grammar teacher or English instructor, and that hanging ain't cutting it, and you want it to be with the G, the proper spelling. Well, you simply need to just grab your text tool and you can click right there where that's at and backspace out of that and then type in your G and make it what you want. Or you can come right over here to the end of it and backspace out all of it. And as long as you are staying right there and you start typing, you see it's following right around that path of that circle. So do not delete that circle toolpath. You can edit your text and it'll stay right on that path. And anytime you're not sure what you've done or don't want to undo it, you can always use your undo button. That was, I know one question that came up today is, can I undo something after the file is saved? And unfortunately, once you hit the save button, let me rephrase that. Once you hit the save button and close that particular file, you can't undo any previous edits. You can save it, but as long as you're staying there in that file, you can undo to your heart's content. But once you close it, all of your previous edits are gone. What you have saved is all you have. So the circle is the toolpath for the text. If you're not going to do the hairy ears, you can delete those. Still in the text tool. If you're not going to do the hairy ears, you can delete those. That's all it's for. If you're going to hang it with a proper alligator hanger or anything else, you can delete those and use anything else you're looking for. And I see some questions popping up here, and I've been Sharon said or comments, after 4 months of issues, Rolly is replacing my MK2 and will be here Tuesday. Also updated the MK2XW. Wow, I haven't heard of anyone. Well, out with the MK1, there was some cabling issues. I'm sorry you had the issues you've had with the MK2 that they're actually replacing it. That's almost unheard of, but that's how good this company is. If there is a problem, they will take care of it. Leo's a pretty awesome dude. So let's see here. Larry's asking, what is the gnome text? What is the gnome text? Is the gnome text a common font? Comic Sans is what I've used. And I'm going to show, and that's the Hangin with my gnomies is Comic Sans. But the lower text, I'm going to show you what I had to do to it. Close that. Chris says, I'm going to start selling a combo Control Z on Etsy and Amazon. Think I will sell many Control Z. Undo is a popular thing, that's for sure. Let's see. All right. So Comic Sans or Sans, or whatever you want to say, is the text for the font up top here. But here, this one I used Beloved. And if I take and I'm going to turn it so we can read it a little easier. This, I used a different font, and I used Celtic MD. But I had to edit this, and I will do this quite often because a lot of times any of my files or anyone else's files that you purchase that has been designed in LightBurn and they used a font that you don't have to worry about it so much that it's not going to work when you import it, because what happens when there's a font or any text in a design, that you're going to download and you don't have that font, it's going to import that in as a path. It will no longer be editable text. You can't edit it, but you'll be able to still engrave it and cut it out as long as you do it as is. And because I realized that the Celtic MD might be something that a lot of people don't have, and there were some things about this font that I didn't like, so I went in and edited it. I already converted it to a path. So it's not even going to be an issue at all, except for the fact you can't edit this particular word, beloved. You can just delete it and put whatever you want to on there. But to show you what I did and why I did it, I've selected my text tool. I'm going to use Celtic MD, and I'm going to come down here and I'm going to type in that same beloved. I got to put my fingers in the right spot. And I'll put it in the center of this one here. And then blow it up so you can see it. And what I didn't like is I didn't like how that straight line down the side of that B. I wanted it to have those points on it here to match the same thing they did with the rest of it. And in order to do that, I had to convert that to a path. Then once I converted it to a path, I can select just that part of the outline and grab my nodes. And we're going to take and select that one. And you see it turned red. I'm holding my shift button and select that one. But before I do, I'm going to create some anchor points. And I'm going to use the letter M, and M, and one more there. I keep hitting the letter M to split the difference, and there we go. Now, that's when I select that corner point and this corner point. By holding shift, I've got them both selected. I can use my arrow key, which I've got set to 1 millimeter, or I think that's 1 millimeter. But that moves them out to about where I want them. I'm going to hit control and bring them in a little bit. So I want them right there. And then I'm going to hit the letter S to smooth that and that. And I don't really, and I'm going to hover over that one and hit the letter C. See how that curved back in? I didn't like that. But here, if I convert that to a corner and say C, and now I can grab that handle and just bring that back up. Hover over that node, hit the letter C, and bring that back up. And now when I look at that, I like that a little bit better. And I played with that one and got a lot more smooth. But, you know, I made some edits to this. It's no longer a text. It is a path. I do believe after you save it, you can reopen it to burn it, but then you can edit it. You can edit it, yes, you can, but you can't undo it. You can make edits all day long, but if there was a question that came up that someone had welded something, saved the file, then closed the file, and then when they reopened it, they wanted to undo the weld. That ain't happening. Once you've saved it, you can't go back in time, but you can go on and re-edit it. So let's see here. And I don't want to spend a whole lot of time boring you with this design, but I want you to see, you know, what to look for, what not to look for, and how to. And then I'm going to show you how I created all of these layers from a single SVG. And to show you how this goes together real quick, the silhouette that is just a silhouette. There's little cutouts. They're not grouped together. You want to group that. That's the back of one gnome, and I'm going to rotate him. That's the very, very back. This is the layer with the beard, and it's got some little lines on here for and those are only for when I'm painting. And I'm going to group those and rotate it. And now with that rotated, that layer is going to sit right on top of that layer. And if you notice, and I'll put them on different layers in here so you can see them. If that's in fill, then we got to change our window to field. There we go. So there's the back, very back piece. And if I take this guy and I put him in another fill mode and put him right on top, every bit of that other layer's covered up except for those pants legs. So when you go to paint it, that's the only area that you got to worry about putting paint in, because that's the only area it's going to show. So there's the first layer and the second layer, and I've got those marks on it. It's not showing up right there. I thought it would showed up. Oh, because it's in fill mode, dummy. But anyway, I've got demarcation lines on there so you can know where to stop your painting and where that beard comes down and overlaps. And let's put it in line mode so you can see it. It still didn't show up. Did I not? Oh, I did. I put it all on the purple layer. So undo, 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 undo. There we go. So if I ungroup that and then hold control and deselect the black lines. Oh, but those guys have got to be in it. There and there. Group that back together and put that on the pink layer. Now put that on the line mode and bring it to the bottom. There you go. There's your lines. So now with all that selected, group that and center it over that fella. So now you can see what I was talking about. So now once this is glued up, you can see, well, I'm going to paint my shoes a darker color. And I actually, and I was asked specifically by a patron, hey man, how did you paint those? How did you put them together? How did you get that? And I did all of this with spray paint, except for the shoes and the hands. The hands and the shoes, the hands and the nose were done with my pen, but everything else was done with spray paint. And by knowing where your paint needs to be, it's real simple to do that way. And why I'm stopping in, no questions. Good. All right, switch. So that first layer, the only place you got to worry about having paint is right there where it's going to be exposed. Here, the second layer, I painted it all white because that's the only thing it's going to be showing here when it's assembled is going to be his beard. And then I used my paint pen to go back in and paint his shoes black and knew exactly where I needed to stop painting it because I drew those lines on there for what I wanted his shoes to be. Then the second layer for that fellow, or the third layer, I should say, is going to be his hat. So if I bring him over, and this is engraving and cutout, and then I spray painted the whole thing blue. But in order to still see the engraving, I did two things. I either made two passes or I did it very, very slow. I went really slow and really deep and dark with the engraving. And then when I painted the hats, because I did it with this, all three hats I painted the same way, engraved them really dark and really heavy. And then when painting them with the spray can, the spray can tells you what, hold the can 6 to 8 inches away and nice even. To accomplish this and not paint over all your hearts and checkers, I held it back about 24 inches and then just let it mist and rain down on it. And it worked out just fine. It looks good. You can't tell, you can't see any blue paint in those areas. All right. Switch. So that's painted blue. And then after I spray painted the whole thing, I took my ink pen or my paint pen and painted his nose a flesh tone color, and it goes on top, and that have to be on another layer so you can see it. And so that goes on top of there. And then this guy's hands are these, the middle one. And that one I cut out, and it's the dark blue is a real heavy engraved, so it's a deep pocket. And then I actually just cleared that whole thing and then used pink paint pens to paint his fingers and hands again. And that one is actually going to sit on the same layer And if you look at the contour of his hands, they actually fit in that contour right there. They fit right in that area, like so, like that. So there's 3 layers to put that gnome together. And simple spray painting and a little paint pen puts them together real easy. These are the same way. In fact, these 2 gnomes are identical. They're just inverted so that their hats both flop inward when fully assembled. So that's basically that design. And before I jump over and show you the wall hanger and go on further with the design, is there any questions? Let's see here. Switch. Da, 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 yeah, there's all kinds of funny sayings. Gnome sweet home. Gnome sweet gnome. There's no place like gnome home. uh okay, come 4th of July, I'm thinking of land of the free and home of the and gnome of the brave. There you go. And I actually did I the other version, I used different colors, but this one I went strictly red, white, and blue. And that was just a choice that I made with what paints I had in front of me. But red, white, and blue gnomes and the 4th of July. And the technique I'm going to show you here in just a second, I'm going to jump over and show you the wall hanger. There's not a whole lot of difference between the two as far as the assembly of the gnomes and all. Just show you this. There's not really any difference. One's got the base, and I'll show you that in a second. The other one doesn't, and you just put the string on it and the hairy ears if you want. But I'm going to show you how to put in, if you're going to do the 4th of July, Bob, you might do a bottle rocket or a firecracker with them, you know, and I'm going to show you how to do that and how you can take this design and it have an infinite possibilities. So hang tight, don't go nowhere, which I know you're not going to, but other people might be going already. So hang tight. All right, marking that spot. And back over to the design. So as I said, this is no longer text. These are paths. So you cannot edit that word beloved. You could only select it, delete it, and put whatever you want to on there. And then on this particular base, because I was trying to keep everything within the 3 pieces of 300 by 300, it's a little bit different design than I've used before. It's 4 layers, and it's actually quite thin. The entire base is less than 2 inches at its widest point, and it's still less than 12 wide. And I did it so that the design here, this top piece, and believe it or not, that's a tab. If you decide you do not want to do all of these pieces and you only want to do a 2 piece, two pieces on the bottom, and if you only going to have a say a 6 or 6 millimeter base instead of these 4 layers, well, you can resize this tab by using the resize slots and tab tool. But you need to know, in addition to your base, if you're only going to do 2 layers of 3 millimeter material, you've still got to make room for whatever size name you want to, or word you want to put in here. Or maybe you don't want to put any word in here at all. Maybe you just want to have a base with 3 gnomes standing on it and the only text be up here. Well, check how easy this is. First, in fact, let's say you don't want anything down there. Well, how tall is this piece? This piece is 49 millimeters tall. So you know that if you slid this up here and you put it right up there, you don't need that space. All that space is no longer needed. And you're only going to need a 6 mil tab. Well, if you select that large outer cutout and only that piece, and you go to resize slots and selection, well, first you say, wait a minute, well, what size is that slot? Well, all you got to do is get your ruler out. Get your ruler, come over here and measure that piece right there. It's 56 mil. And you can check and see over here, 56 mil. That's going to go from that corner node to the next node right up there. And so that's a 56 millimeter tab. So now you can say tools, resize slots and selection. We're going to change our tab height. And we're going to go from 56 mil to only 6 mil. And apply. And it's going to change that. You don't want that anymore, so you can just delete it. And now you've got just a 6 mil tab, and you can get rid of 2 of those. Say, I don't want that. I don't want any of that. I only want those 2, because those 2 3 pieces, 6 mil, that's going to slide right in there. And you got a simple shelf sitter with a lot less work, and it's not as busy, and you've just got a simple little name up there or text, whatever you want it to be. So any of the designs you get from me where they have a base on them, that is a tab that's sliding into the base. If you want to alter that in any way, if you want to add a sign or a welcome or whatever on the tab and then create your base, all you got to do is elongate your base and make room for that sign, and vice versa. If you don't want it, figure out how tall it is, what you can get rid of, subtract it, and make sure you leave room for your whatever tab size you need. And it's real simple and real easy to modify these designs, whether it's my design or somebody else's. If it's got a tab sitting down into a base, and here's what you can also look for. If it doesn't recognize that as a tab, I'm going to select that. I'm going to go to nodes, and I'm going to put a random node in here. And this is also, you, without ever going to node editing, you can tell if there are nodes that are going to be a problem. Because when you grab your ruler, your measurement tool, I can come over here and I can see there, and it's 6 mil. Okay. Then I look here and that says 85.59. Okay. But wait a minute, look, it's not going across the entire length. So when you see measurements like that and it's broken up and not measuring the entire length, that's because it's measuring from node to node. So when you see a piece like that, you know that there's a node in there. And that one node will prevent the tool, the resize slots and selection tool. It will no longer recognize that as a tab. And once you go into the tool, you'll see your nodes, and you see that one random node right there. So now you know you need to cancel, go into node editing, select that node and hit the letter D. Do not hit the delete button. You hit the delete button and the whole thing goes bye-bye. So select that node and hit the letter D and it goes bye-bye. And now it is an editable tab. You can change that tab. All right. Sharon says, that's not that. Sharon says, I pre-paint the boards, then engrave and do the hats and the hearts. And I have done that. And there are a couple of things about doing it that way that I no longer do it. One, I'm lazy. And whenever you're engraving an image through pre-painted material, if I've done my test and I know that the 10 watt is going to give me the desired results I want at 722 millimeters per minute and 10% power, that's on this bare wood. If I've got to go through paint, it's not the same. It's not going to give me the same results. So I almost have to have another test grid to know what it's going to do for that paint. But then the problem with that is, if Fine. You get that with the test on that piece of material you painted. But the next time you do it, if you didn't get the exact same number of coat of paint or the same amount of paint on the as you did with your test piece, you still gonna have set different results. You can always go back and do it again if it's not as dark as you want. But then the other thing that I found, well, not the other, one other thing that I found is that sometimes you can get some excessive scorching on the paint. The paint burns. And it's not too bad if you're using a darker color, but when you're using white or a lighter color, that burnt edge around the paint, that's not as desirable as I would like. And then the biggest thing about doing pre-painted is the extra fumes and the gases that come off of it. And I'm afraid of what that's doing as far as coating of the lens, making it even more dirty or getting it dirty even quicker, more having to clean it more often. So I stick with just engraving my bare wood and then use my wonderful paint pens to get the details that I want. And those are on hobowithwood.com in the shop or the shop supplies page, I think it is. And like I said, I found, I hope that's going to stay. I found that painting it from an excessively high height and letting it just rain down, it gets a pretty good coating on there, but it doesn't feel the engraved lines. So there's always another way, And I'm not saying pre-painting is a bad thing. It's just, it creates, I think, more cleaning, and maybe not as, the results are not as consistent. Yeah. Gnome editing is a great feature. Gnome editing. Node editing. Gnome editing is funny. Once you node, you node. Yep. All right. Now, so let's see. We talked about changing that. How you can either add a base, take a base away, add a sign. All right. Let's go over and look at the other design real fast. And then, because I don't think there's much to explain there. And then I'm going to show you the editing of the hands and the tech, or your pieces, what you're looking for, what to make it unique and custom. And take that off there. Sorry. Hey, Nipa. And then we'll move on. This is not going to be a long stream tonight. It's been a long week. All right. So let's see. File. And before I move away from this design, does anybody have any questions about this design? Like I said, the other one's just going to be a wall hanger. But before I leave from this, any questions? 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. Okay, moving on. New. No, I don't want to save anything. File. Comment. Circle with the measure is sort of an exception. It measures your quadrant. When checking circumference with no nodes before you convert to a path, but still shows the circumference. Yes. Well, it still has it's got to have, doesn't it have the 4 nodes in there? And you can't delete those. You've got to have them to create the arcs. Yeah. But deleting the nodes there is talking about specifically when wanting to do tab resizing. All right. File. And recent. All right. Now, switch. The difference between the two, the first one, I did not have the hearts in his hat. In fact, that's what I'll show you too. I'll show you how to, like here, I've got the heart between the two hands, but each of the files, when you download them, they have an extra pair of hands that are empty. So they're already spaced, and they even have the black demarcation lines there, if you will, for the fingertips whenever he's holding what he's holding. Those are on here too. But I'll also show you how to put random things in the hat, like on the other one that I just had up there. Instead of the wall hanger's got the circles or the polka dots, the shelf setter I've done with the hearts. And I actually changed the checkerboard on this guy a little bit. It's a little bit larger. Oh, and that's another thing I'll show you. You notice anything about that checkerboard, the pattern? It's not a straight line. I gave it some warpage in order for it to look like the hat's kind of flopping and following the curve and the contours of the hat a little bit. So it didn't look like someone just cut out a pattern and put it on that hat. We'll look at that too. All right, so switch. So first things first. This one, like I said, no difference. This welcome has already been changed to a path because that one I changed because I didn't like the spacing on it. So that is not an editable text. You cannot edit that word with that font. The nomies, hanging with my nomies, you can edit that. You still have the same circle path, the tool path for your text that cannot be deleted. The same thing with the holes in the ears, and I'll touch base on that toward the end of this about how I got the hairy ears. And it wasn't just from getting older. That happens too. All right. So let's look at the hands, because this when I created the wall hanger, I did first, and I did it with the hearts. And when I redesigned the shelf setter, as you've seen, I made some changes. I changed the hat, changed the patterns on the hats, but I also wanted to do something different with what he was holding, what they were holding. And the first time I did it, I screwed up. So what I'm going to show you now will hopefully prevent you from making the same mistakes be it with this file or any other time you're doing this with your designs and your work later on. It's having to think ahead, plan ahead in your designs. And this was something I didn't even contemplate. And I was like, and it bit me, and I had to undo. Until finally I just went back to that and said, because I didn't want to go through all that again. So switch. So I'm going to take these bare hands. Bare hands. Not that kind of bear. All right. And let's say you wanted to do for something for the 4th of July. And let's say we're going to do a TNT powder keg. All right. So I want to draw a rectangle, a rectangle about the size I want. I can always edit my size. In fact, all right, we'll start here. And then I want to give it that cartoony look. I want to give it circle there. And then create rows with 0 spacing and say group them and say okay. That height is 44,292. So I'm going to change my anchor point to this top left and say 44.292. And that brought that up to there. And that's the same height as my circles there. Now I'll select that group, Control D to duplicate them. and move them over to where they're in the center. There. And select that and group them together. And now group those together. Weld them. So there's kind of a, I'm thinking something like you see on Coyote, Roadrunner and Coyote, corrugated looking can. And then maybe there's some text on there for TNT. And it might be in all uppercase. And we're going to do Arial. We don't want all that Celtic. There we go. And then, of course, you probably, I don't know, maybe you'd have a fuse on or not. I don't know. But right now we're going to leave that as is. And we're not going to go into a whole lot of detail in creating that. We're going to group it together. And then I want to size it for the hands. And I just noticed that looks a little bit funky with the corrugated can and then the fingertips too. But we'll see what she looks like here when we're done, because we're going to weld them together. But once you've got whatever you want to be the held by the gnome, Control D, duplicate your hands and move your hands out of the way. Keep you a spare blank set of hands. And now, if we look at this, these are grouped, but not only are they grouped, but there are multiple layers here. There's a black layer for that engraving too. So first, I want to put that in the horizontal center. There we go. And now I'm going to ungroup my hands, and I'm going to turn off the black layer. Don't even show it. So now I've got that hand and that hand. And you have to think this through. I want to weld those together. So group those. And then if I select that and then weld them. Did it go to the black layer? It sure did. I don't know why. Because I know why. Because I had the black layer selected. That's right. Put it back on the cut layer. There we go. And that got grouped together. I wasn't paying attention. Ungroup that. Put those back on the black layer. There we go. And now my fingertips don't quite line up. That's okay. I can grab that, go to node editing, come to that node and hit the letter E. The letter E for extend. That went a little bit too far, so I just put it right back there. And here, I'm actually going to come, because that's on a curve, I'm going to hit the letter I for insert to put an anchor point right there to keep that curve in place. Then I'm just going to grab that second node and bring it down here where it needs to be. Oh, I didn't mean to do that. Control Z, grab the node. And I see some questions and comments. I'm going to stop and answer them. And then that's not what I wanted. Control Z, make that a corner, letter C. And now I can just curve that down. That didn't work. Control Z, corner. I wasn't getting the right one. Corner. There we go. And now I can bend that and not mess up the other. All right, let me look at these questions and comments. Can you share the link to your color print? They're on the website. If you go to hobowithwood.com and go to the shop supplies page, I think it's the shop supplies. Let me look. Do hobowithwood.com. Yeah, on the shop supplies page are a lot of my favorite things. So on the shop supplies page, There they are. And right here, Hobo with wood paint pens. Click on that link and it'll take you to the current offering from Amazon, and they are currently $12.95. But the shop supplies page is a list of my most used things. The next version of LightBurn, the create circle has been merged into the square. You will have a pop out. Oh man, I don't like that. I don't like that. I like having the separate tools. I don't like where they're merging all these to where different things are now becoming sub menus of other tools. I don't like that. I like being able to click on my settings for my move tabs. Now in order to set your move settings, you got to go into the shop setting, then go over to another, and then go to I ain't liking all the merging they're doing. All right, so that's those questions. So moving on, mark that. Swap. Back to LightBurn. All right, so that's how I made those fingers match. You do the same thing over here, or you can just do this. Say, you know what? Goodbye. Grab this one. I've already made the edits. Control D, duplicate it, bring it over here, mirror it, and then line it up to where it needs to be. Grab it. So you only had to make the edit one time, and now they both work because those hands were created that way. They're mirror images of each other. So now when you cut that out, it's going to cut out that outer perimeter, but then it's also going to engrave those fingertips. So now when you're painting this and putting it together, maybe you're a better artist than I am and you don't need those guidelines, but I like them. It also adds definition to the engraving. Even with your painting, it just gives it a hard end on that. So back over here. So now once you've got that set up and you're like, okay, well, if you used the same hands and you're using my gnome and you group that, you bring it in, well, those hands are going to line up. Let's see, which one do I want to put him on? I'm trying to think which, we'll use the center one. They're going to line up. Well, you know what? Maybe they won't line up. If they don't, all I there is just stretch them out. Make sure you hold control and stretch them in both directions. As I said, I've been extremely crazy, hectic this week. I may have failed to save the last edition or rendition of the hands, and I made the gnome wider. But as you see, all you do is hold control and just stretch those hands out a little bit, and they'll fit right in there. But that's not the only thing you have to watch out for. In fact, that's supposed to be on this layer. There we go. That's going to go on top of there. And then the other obstacle you have to watch out for when you're welding something in there, you've got this to keep in mind. And I just brought some fingertips with me. See how his nose is in the way? Those are going to conflict because those are the same layer. Those hands are on the same layer as the nose. So there's where they would fit together, and your nose would hit the TNT. So what would be a good idea to prevent, and I say this because I did this exact same thing as you just seen here. So to prevent this from happening, what I would recommend doing is take that away and say bye-bye. Grab your hands, your bare hands, or your bare hands. Bring them in here, put them where they're supposed to be. And you see there, they're not lined up. If I put them in the center and then select just the hands and hold control and stretch them out to where they need to be. Well, that didn't work either. The control didn't. Are they ungrouped? Nope, just ungroup them and move him over there. There you go. So now those hands are in the proper place. And what you would do is take your hat, duplicate that, put it up here out of the way. That's because you don't want to mess up your original piece. And you can take that, ungroup it, select all of that design work. We're selecting the whole thing, and I'm holding control and deselect the outline and delete that. Put that on a toolpath. So now you have a work area. I need to keep whatever I need in here. And that's something I should have done when I was creating it. Had I put that and saved that toolpath on there, now it's just one less thing you'd have to do. You know that you got to keep your whatever you add to his hands under his nose. Another option you would be to put it on another layer so that it could rise above his nose and maybe extend past his nose and above his hat. And you could do that by simply cutting out if let's say if you wanted to put something rather large in his hands that was going to extend from let's grab our rectangle tool and just say you wanted to have something that was going to extend from here to here. You could do that, and it would not be hard to do. It would not be hard to do at all. All you have to do is where his hands are going to be on the same level with his nose, we're going to make that a solid piece that just spans that area. And then you're going to glue on top of that. That's going to lift it above his nose. And now you could have 4 layers of the gnomes and put as large of an object in there as you wanted to. And if you did it in a way that it, tilted a little bit, so it wasn't just blocking his nose and everything up, you can get creative. But to do that, all you're going to have to do is if you were to grab one of the hands, get our selector tool, grab one of the hands, and in this case, we're going to go ahead and duplicate them, move those over here. I'm going to select those black layers and delete them. And I'm going to grab one of these and go into node editing. And I'm going to select every one of those fingers and I'm going to bring it all the way over here till they overlap one another. And then hold shift and select that one and weld those together. And if you were to just glue that piece to the beard and then create that piece that's going to be really larger than what would accommodate in the regular position, it would sit on top of the nose and the hat, because that's going to serve just as a spacer that would line up perfectly with his hands and anything that he was holding. And I didn't think about that when I was designing it. That could be, now you just opened up the door to all kind of possibilities that he could be holding. And I use the pronoun he because none of my gnomes are wearing dresses. I don't know. Let's see here. So the obstacle to watch out for is if you're not going to do a additional spacer there to raise it above the nose, then you need to keep it between the nose. And it doesn't matter if it comes down a little bit below his feet or not, because there's not going to be anything that interferes with the size or the height there. But you do, if you're going to keep it on the same level as the hat and the nose, like I have here, the top layer there you can see is the heart and the hat. They're on the same level. But you could make that spacer there and lift that up to another layer and that could be as large as you want it to be. Now for the ear hair, all I did was took some jute rope, and the hole on the stand I think is about 3 or 3.5 mil, because I got some really thin jute rope, 3 strands, cut off about 2 inches, put a single knot in one side, pulled it through, and left an inch of the jute rope free. And then I took it and just untwisted it all, and then took a brush, a wire brush, and brushed it all apart to fray it out. And then on the back side, just put a knot on the back side and then trim it to fit. And you got your gnome hair, your gnome ear hair. The design and the hats. I knew there was something else. All right, so we're good there. All right. I'm going to start over. New, discard, open that back up. Recent. All right. So this was my first attempt on this, and I'm also going to show you also how I did that warpage. I'm going to grab that, and I'm going to get those fingertips again. Don't want to, but Control D, duplicate it, bring it up. Bye-bye. All right. So this pattern, I started to do a houndstooth pattern, and I started to do checkerboard, and I said, I don't know. So let's just start with the pattern in general. Delete that. I just simply drew a straight line. I come out past, in fact, you could start down here, get it at its widest point, and just hold a straight line and draw it straight across until you extend beyond both sides. Put that on the black path so we can see it. Now I got one single straight line. I'm going to do an offset of that, and I'm going to do it 0.6 of a millimeter outward. So that will be, and since it's a line, it's going outward in both directions. So that'll give me a 1.2 millimeter bar, and delete the original object, say okay. And now I'm going to use my grid array, and that's 1.2 millimeters. I'm going to create another row. Let's reverse the direction and make it go up, and let's increase the Y spacing 1.2 millimeters. So now it's going to space it apart as far apart as it is wide. And let's do, oh, wrong way. There we go. We'll do 4 rows and group the results and say okay. Now that group is 8.4 height. So right back into the grid array, and I'm going to create more rows, but I'm going to give it a Y spacing of 8.4. And we're going to do this until we extend past the top of our hat and say okay. They were grouped. I'm going to hit the Control D to duplicate it, and I'm going to use my less than key to rotate it. Now, it's not long enough. That's okay. My spacing is going to be fine. I just need to elongate it by holding the Control button and pull that down. And now I've got a checkerboard looking pattern that's going to fit within that hat. I hold my Control or my Shift button to select the other group and weld those together. And then use my hat as a, well, actually, I'm gonna twist my pattern around before I cut it out, because if in order of priorities matter. If I cut out the design of the hat for the pattern, and then I start warping this design, then it may not fit my hat pattern anymore. So if you're planning to warp it or change it or deform it, then you're going to do all that before you use your cookie cutter and stamp out your pattern. So, and I'm going to use the deform tool and not the warp tool. So here I've got that selected. Make sure that's all I got selected. And go into tools and deform. Now the difference, if you haven't seen these, warp selection gives you 4 points that you can warp this, and you can take and warp that out here, and you can warp it in that direction, and you get some funnier things going on. So you can make it look like the pattern shooting up and out from the bottom of the hat. But that's not the look I'm going after. I want to actually create some curves, and you cannot do that with the warp tool. So I'm going to you can't, and this is what I don't like about the warp tool either. You sit here and hit undo all you want, and it's not going to undo anything. You have to go to your selector tool, and then and if you had made 12 changes in the warp tool, but you just didn't like that last one, too bad. You can't undo that last one. You can undo all of them. So you hit undo button and it takes it back to the original. But I'm going to go to the deform tool, and the deform tool gives you 16 places to warp this from. And if I grab this one by itself and move that out here, it'll pull just that out. But if I hold the shift button, it'll move the opposing corner in the same way. And I want to make the top of this kind of look like it's, I'd like to have the center of this kind of in the center of the hat. So I'm just going to keep playing until I get that over there like that. But I want to get that in about the center. Let's get that back over here. Don't want to lose its shape a whole lot, but I want to create that curve of the hat. Thank you, Kevin. I seen that pop up. Bless you, sir. Thank you very much. Bring that over there and bring it in over here some more. And maybe I want to have it curved back this way over here a little bit now. I'll bring that over, and that's moving that. So let's pull that back over. And what the heck? Let's pull this over a little bit. Let's put this one in the center of his nose. About like that. All right. And that looks pretty good for right now. There we go. Now that I've got the curves that I want to have happen, now I will take and go back to my selector tool. I'm going to create a copy of the hat pattern by going Control D, duplicate it. Now I've got that selected. Hold my shift button and select my pattern. And if you're not really familiar with, or even if you've been doing this for over 2 years and you still get confused by the Boolean tools, then Control B can be your best friend after undo button. Control B will bring up the Boolean assistant, and it will allow you to look at and preview all 4 of the possibilities without anchoring anything and making it permanent. You don't want that. That looks like it might be right. That's the intersection tool. But that looks like it might be right too. That's the subtract tool. That's definitely not right. So what's the difference between this one and this one? But they are different. They're not the same. Can you wrap it up and down, say in the middle of the hat to follow the brim arch? Yeah, I think you can, but we'll experiment with that in just a second. Because right, I want to finish this thought while I'm thinking of it. This intersection looks right and this subtract looks right, but they're not the same thing. So what's the difference? Well, I'm not going to select either one right now. I'm going to hit cancel and go back. I duplicated that hat path so that I had a tool to cut out with. And that's what you're still seeing there. You're still seeing that second duplication of the hat. And because that's there, you can't see the difference between the intersection and the subtraction. So I'm going to go back, and that duplicate, or the original, I'm going to put it on a toolpath and then turn that toolpath off so you can see the difference. So I'm going to hit cancel. We're back here. And so now I'm going to select one of these hat layers and I'm going to put it on a toolpath. And then I'm going to turn that toolpath off. So now all you're going to see is the original hat and our path. And I go to Control B, bring up my options, and it was either intersection or subtract. And now I want to say intersection. Now you can see that versus that. And you see the difference is where they are filling. Where is, you see, this is an open shape right here. And this one, that's a closed shape right there. So depending on how you wanted that to engrave, it's going to affect your engraving. If you want to engrave these areas as solid lines, then you would want to do that. That's solid. That's going to engrave. If you do that, then it's going to engrave those blocks and not the lines. So that's the one I want. Say okay. Turn my toolpath back on. Put that back on the cut path. And that's going to cut out like that. And now if I put that in fill mode, you can see that. Now, had we done that preview or that the Boolean in fill, you could have seen that. So let's go back and let's put that in fill. So there's, select our pattern, hold shift, select the hat and Control B. And now when you look at intersection, there's one option and then there's, oh, I did it in the wrong order. There you go. And there's the other option. And by having it in fill, you can see what that outcome would be. And that's the one I want. But I don't like designing in fill mode. That's why it was in line mode. All right, now we'll look and see if there's any questions. And again, I did thank you, Kevin. Greatly appreciated, Kevin, in the chat there with the $30. Thank you from me. And John asked about wrapping it up, and I'm guessing maybe like a toboggan, not so much as a brim. You're not going to be doing anything there, but if you want to like do a little flip up around it, I believe we can make that happen. And V's in the house, and I think V just had a birthday. She's in the Hobo with Wood group, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think V, wasn't your birthday? Aren't you Valentine's baby? Happy birthday! My nephew, he just turned 28. He's a Valentine's baby. Yes, a happy birthday, V. Everybody tell a happy birthday. Let's see here. Back over and let's play with this brim. Actually, before we do that, because I want to come back with that, because that's something that's going to be new to me. But I think it's doable. But I don't know if it's something we want to do with this pattern, but we'll look at it. But before I do that, we're going to do the polka dots or other randoms in the other designs in the other hats. So switch. And something to be careful of, and the reason I changed it in the second design is this one, it's a little bit tight. I did not use the 0.6. If I measure that line, that one's only 1/4 millimeter. And that was really, really tight on the engraving on the first design I did. So the second time I did it this way, and it looked much better, being as small as the hat was. But let's grab this guy. And we're going to bring him up here. And on the second hat, no, actually, you know what? For those who have already got the file for the wall hanger and it's got the hat with the polka dots in it, I thought about this after I did the finished piece. And this would have actually looked really cool in conjunction with the checkerboard hat. right now, when you download the file, that 03 green layer is in fill mode. It's actually a multi-layer where it's a fill and then a line after fill. But if you'd done that one in an offset fill and increased the line intervals, that would have been looked pretty cool with the polka dots. So let's take a look at that real quick. In fact, let's just grab that one and bring it over here and go to preview. And maybe actually I did it in a crosshatch. Yeah, I did do that one a little bit different. I did that with a crosshatch and a larger line interval. So it's kind of got a little bit of a checkerboard look to it. So when you look at the preview, you have that. But what I think might even look kind of even cooler is if that was done in offset fill instead, and look at that preview. Yeah. And you'd have got that effect with the engraving. Now, here's the only downside using offset fill. These over here that are perfect, you get that perfect. But here, because it hits that flat line, then it creates that all the way in. It's not as desirable as these. So I don't know. I might still would have done it. It's still kind of cool looking versus just regular. Thank you, Moses. Bless you, sir. But don't forget about using your offset fill and increasing your line intervals and crosshatch with increased line intervals to create different effects other than just a solid black layer engraving. Oh, look, I can engrave. Well, be creative. Increase that line spacing, give it a crosshatch or an offset fill, and do something a little bit unique compared to the other laser engraver in the booth beside of you. So let's see here. Back over here. Close that up. All right. So on the first one, I did the polka dots. The second one, I wanted to give him the hearts. And so I have in my art library a heart, or a bunch of hearts. Let's get my basic heart in here. And I'm going to shrink her down to appropriate size. Maybe a little bit smaller. And I'm going to come up here and I'm going to, and I always forget, you don't have to go top to bottom when you're creating the array. You can go from bottom to top. So if you go to your widest point of your pattern and make sure you're exceeding it, and then you go to your grid array and you start creating rows and columns. Let's turn off the shift by half and everything else. All right. We want to get it. Don't worry. Definitely go past it. Maybe want to increase our spacing a little bit. And in fact, we can go to 4 and increase our spacing a little more. And then that's the columns, and then rows. And because I don't have reverse direction turned on, it's going up from the bottom. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. Now, if you shift by half, that's starting to look a little bit better. And then maybe you do, let's change our Y spacing and bring them a little bit tighter together. And now, and I know you for my regular viewers, which are probably the 92 of you that are here, if you're a unique viewer, if this is your first time in the stream tonight, instead of doing a question mark and an exclamation point, put down 5 asterisk and say first time viewing. Let me know if you're first time here, and if it is and you like what you're seeing, be sure you hit that like and share and subscribe button, especially this is the subscribe button. That was the tongue twister. So we've created our rows and our columns. We've shifted by half. We've got the line spacing we want. And my regular viewers are tired of hearing me saying it, but now we're going to use the tool that I suggested, the random orientation tool right here. We turn that on, and right now you see all the hearts are lined up, pointing down. As soon as you hit that random orientation, it flips them around in all kind of different directions. So if you don't, and if you see that and you don't like that, then that's what this auto increment, no, not that one, the random orientation, these arrow buttons right here. If you don't like the way these are oriented, just start changing this number. And they start flipping around in different directions like they're popcorn on a skittle. You know, I like that one. And then say, okay. And I had my group results turned on. So now they're grouped. And now if you want to see, we just learned, hey, put it in fill mode. And let's put this on the black line. All right. And now we want to cut that out and see which one's going to be the results we want. So let's duplicate. We got to, whatever we're going to use as our cookie cutter. That's, you know, if you think like you're making Christmas cookies and you want to make a cookie the shape of that hat, then you got a cookie cutter you're going to stamp in your dough. Well, we want to take and cookie cut that heart pattern out. So the heart pattern is grouped together. And now we need to create an extra cookie cutter because you get to use that cookie cutter once. And then this is the good old US of A, land of the waste. So we've got a cookie cutter for every time we're going to make a cookie. We're going to cut a cookie and throw it away. Cut a cookie and throw it away. It's not reusable. And since it's going to disappear when we're done, that's why you have to make your duplicate. So with the cookie cutter selected, Control D to duplicate that. You no longer see your ants running around there because there's one sitting on top of the other one. So you select your cookie, or select your array first. So you got A, or actually, you know, and this is where I sometimes, even after the years of doing it, I'll get confused. But I've selected A, hold shift and select the cookie cutter B and do the Control B for the Boolean tool assistant. And now since it's in fill mode, you can see which one of those you want. See, if you wanted to do an inverse engraving to where you left the wood as the heart and engraved everything else around it, you could select that last option and do that. You'll burn away everything but the hearts. But I don't want that. I want to burn the hearts. So it's that one, A and B, the intersection. So that, and say okay. And so now I've got, and then we can put that back on line mode. Line. And put that back. And actually, these guys would be on our black layer, and that's a cut layer. The hat is a cut layer. There we go. And those would be in fill. So if you wanted to do clovers, you wanted to do any other object you wanted to put there, you can create the one, create the array, do your offset by half, and then random orientation to create a random pattern in your hat. And Gigi has just walked over here to me. Now, she hasn't said anything, but she knows I'm talking about her because her tail is just. So she's just come over here to let me know she either wants a treat or she needs OUT. But she heard treat and she took off. You want a treat? Come here. I said treat. She ran away. So I don't think that's what she's wanting. So she may be wanting to go OUT. You want this? No? Okay. She's going to have to wait. If she barks, I'll have to walk off a second. But I'm curious now about what the suggestion was or the question was about creating the flip up on the hat to create kind of like the brim look. And she's getting anxious. Let's see here. Yeah. Chris says do the offset fill and then cut it out, and you could get your complete concentric circles and not have that problem. I feel you, Ed. Well, I hope you're feeling better and get the rest you need. And now she's starting to pace. Skip, welcome to the stream. And this is not the norm. Only one other time in over 2 years has she ever interrupted me in the stream to let me know that she needed to do OUT. And I can't say it because she knows it. But she's pacing. She hasn't started fussing yet, but I might let her out. See? I told you I couldn't say it. I'm coming. Y'all bear with me for just 30 seconds. Y'all don't go anywhere. Entertain yourself. That's too funny. That's too funny. Oh my goodness. All right. Oh, this way. Come on. Oh my! I bet y'all thought I was kidding whenever I was spelling that. Here you go, good girl. But as soon as I said that word, it was over. All right. Let's see. Bark, it's late and I have early church service tomorrow. Good night. I'll watch the replay tomorrow. Well, thank you, Larry. Thank you for coming and hanging out while you can. Oh. So why the number of the comments? That's for regular viewers and for yourself. Anybody, it's to help the YouTube analytics because this is going to be replayed and people are watching it. And when people are watching and they're learning stuff and they're so captivated by what's going on, because who wouldn't be, and they're just watching and not commenting, well, that doesn't help the analytics. So anytime people learn something new, I ask them to put in a number 1. If they learn a second thing, they put in a number 2. If they learn a third thing, put in number 3. So when you see somebody who's put in a 5, they've learned 5 things in this stream. And by keeping that and those comments rolling, it just helps. It lets YouTube know that, hey, people are engaged and interacting with the stream. It's something silly, but it helps. It helps. And it lets me know that, hey, it's been a worthwhile stream. Well, snowing again. I hear you. That when I went home. I went into the camper yesterday at, I think, about 4 in the afternoon, I think. And I laid down and so I'm taking a nap because that was the day after being up 23 hours. And I laid down and went to sleep at 4 in the afternoon. And I woke up at 10 this morning, I think it was. And woke up and seen on my phone the alert that it was snow and rain expected, but fortunately I slept through it. Whatever happened happened, and I was out. If it's going to snow, I want it to snow butthole deep to a giraffe and hang around for a week and a half. If it ain't going to, then don't bother with this little bit of snow and a little bit of ice. It just makes things a mess. Let's see here. Add numbers to yep. Please check your email, especially the spam phone. I think if you're referring to your email earlier, I think I seen it. I think I did. I didn't see you in the stream. Let's see here. Not that. Yes, Brad, I got it. And thank you, sir. Bless you, sir. Thank you very much. Greatly appreciated. All right. So now, what I want to try and do, and I have not tried this, so I don't, and I think it's going to work. I think it'll work. I think it'll work. I don't know why it wouldn't work, but we're going to learn this together. What I'm thinking I'm going to try to do is on that hat, we'll start with no pattern. And we're going to try and create a brim that flips up using that deform tool. And I'm trying to think if there'd be an easier way to do it before we go down that path, but let's just see what happens. Well, thank you, Brad, and good night. I appreciate you. I really do. Thank you for your support and for being here. All right, so let's go back over here to LightBurn. And do. All right, now what I want to do is first I'm going to delete these guys. Delete those guys. I'm going to duplicate this one, Control D, duplicate it, and then I'm going to put it in node editing. And I'm going to delete the nose. I can't delete that guy because that's crucial. So I'm going to have to delete those right there, hit the letter D for delete. And then I can, same thing here, just now get all those. And I'm going to hit the L for line and create a line there. And now I'll just kind of curve it up a little bit to create the contour that I want for the hat to be. All right, so I'm going to start there. And I'm going to put it on a black layer. It's in fill mode. And I'm doing this in fill mode to see if it does what I think it's going to do. I'm going to now select the deform selection tool. And I think if I hold the shift button, it'll move this one and this one at the same time, mirroring the movement. And if I bring it down to the bottom corner, that's going to deform it out where I don't want it to be. If I stretch those all the way down and stretch those down, actually, I don't want to stretch those down. I want to invert those. I'm curious if I'm going to take those a little bit below, and I'm going to grab these and bring it down. No. Well, no, it's not going to do what I thought it would do. I thought it was going to flip it and invert it. So it was, it was overlapped and you'd have a negative here but that didn't work. So no, that was a good idea, but it didn't turn out the way I wanted it to. So undo, and you can't undo. You can do it all you want to. It won't do it. You have to go to your select tool and you hit the undo loop, and it just it undoes them all those changes. But if I wanted to do a little bit of a brim on that, then what I would simply do would be Control D, duplicate that again, and then I'm going to hold or grab that center one, and I'm going to move it up to about there. Then I would bring it out to where it overlapped on both sides. I should have held control. And then grab that original. Let's see, is that the red? Turn off the red layer. Make sure I'm not getting the red layer. There we go. There's the original. I'm going to duplicate that and put it on a toolpath as well, so it's not going anywhere. And now I want the intersection of those two. So select one and then the other, and Control B, and find that lower piece right there. That's all I want. Say okay. Ungroup all that because I don't want all of that. I only want that lower piece. Delete that. Turn that toolpath back on. Put that back in the black layer. And there we go. There I've got an outline of a turned up or flip. And what you could do there is select just it. It's in fill mode, but because they're identical, it creates the inverse or the negative image of that. But let's say I wanted to actually see an engraving there. Let's put it on a different layer altogether. I'm going to put it in the gold layer, put it in fill, and then I'm going to use my options of different fills. I'm going to do a crosshatch. I'm going to change it to a 45. No, let's do 22 degree scan angle, and we're going to increase our line interval to a 2. Let's see what that looks like. Two might be too much, but let's just do 1 and say okay. And now let's do and line after fill, and that's fine. All right, and now let's look at the preview of that and see what that looks like. That and preview, and turn off our. Oh, you know what? I need to do. This is a good learning thing. If I turn off the traversal moves, you can see. All right, so what's happened there is I've got the black layer being fully engraved, and then it's engraving that gold layer on top of it. So I only want the gold layer there, so I've got to subtract that from the top. And let's see, change that. So let's put this in line mode, wireframe course. So now I'm going to say A. Actually, you know what? I got to duplicate that guy. Duplicate that one. Control D, duplicate it. And now I'll say A for the hat. Hold Shift, select the gold layer and subtract it. And it gave some funky little pieces down there. We're going to turn off the gold layer. And we'll grab all those pieces we don't want. And we got to ungroup it first. And delete that. And a little funky little tangent over here. Put it in node editing and delete those with the letter D. That cleaned that up. Now if we turn the gold layer back on, there's good. And we go back to our filled smooth. And that's the image we want. And now we're going to select all of it and go look at the preview. There you go. That's what I was looking for. So I give you a different look to the hat. That gives it more of like a Santa looking hat. Tom, thank you. I don't know if I said thank you, Tom, but thank you, Tom. All right. Brim offset, then node edit. I don't know if I did what you're talking about now, or we got to where you were looking. And I will, and I almost always say in my streams, there's always another way. My way's not the only way. My way is not necessarily the best way, but it might be the best way that my brain wraps around the concept to get there. There could be half a dozen ways to accomplish the same thing. And if you let any loudmouth, overbearing YouTuber tell you that this is the way to do something, there's not one way to do something. There's always another way. What is that magic you're doing to the hat? What you talking about, Willis? Creating the brim. Somebody asked about putting a brim on it, and I couldn't actually put a true brim like a baseball cap on it. With what I was thinking, I thought that using the deform tool, you could took the bottom row of nodes and pull the second from the bottom. If you pulled them to the bottom and then pulled the bottom up to the top, essentially you would be overlapping. You'd be doing it just like on an actual toboggan or something. You'd be flipping that back up over it. And since it would overlap it, I was hoping that it would create the negative image like I just did there using the cut tools. But the deforming and wrapping it over itself did not work in the way that I thought that it would or should or could. So we just did it another way. Why? Because there's always another way. Always another way. And again, super thank you, Tom. Man, I love seeing this. I do. I love seeing those numbers, and especially, a lot of you guys, I know you guys have been doing this for a while. And so when I see some of the vets throwing up these numbers, that's awesome. It's super awesome. And it's been a good hour and 45 minutes. The deform tool, I think that's what I was wondering what that was. Yeah, the deform tool and the warp tool, they were introduced in a couple of versions of Light Tool, a couple of versions back, and they're pretty cool. And you can do some really wicked stuff with them. I've got a Star Wars art on the website, and I use the warp tool to do that. And I'll show you that real briefly and show you those tools very briefly, and we're going to wrap this up. Let's see here. Seems I know of another overbearing. Let's see. Seems I know of another overbearing. There is only one way to do something person. I think the warp creates a new shape to replace the original. Maybe why it didn't work as expected. Okay. All right. So let's show this to we'll go to LightBurn. We'll go to new and discard. And the warp tool I find very, very effective for text. And I don't, it's the same. Well, it's not the same. They did a very primitive technique to do it in Star Wars. They actually did it on actual glass and then moved the camera, laid it on a table or something and moved the camera down in a way the text never moved. The camera was what was moving. But we're going to put some text on here and say, yeah, spell it right. We'll not do that. We'll do LightBurn. And I don't have my good eyeball glasses on. I have too many glasses. I need progressive lenses or a new set of eyes. All right. So if I've got this text, if you use the warp tool, tools, warp tool gives you 4 points to warp the text just on the corners. And if you're old enough or hip enough to know the introduction, the opening credits to the Star Wars, the episode 4, the first Star Wars, which was episode 4, which if you know, you know. Take that and hold shift and bring that in and draw it out and away. And let's put that on the black layer so it shows up better in a fill mode. So that's kind of like that Star Wars introduction where the text is falling away from you. And that's the warp tool. And you can use, you don't have to do it just for that. That's not its only function, but it only lets you warp it in 4 directions. Warp tool. You can, bend it, pinch it together. If you brought it together in the middle. And here is what I see how it overlaps there, Chris. See that one, it actually overlaps each other. You actually can invert it. You're flipping that over the top of it. And that's why I thought the deform tool would create the negative of a solid fill, because that shows you the mirror or the underside of the word. And so I thought the deform tool would do the same thing, but it didn't do what I thought it would do. That's the warp tool. And if we go back, you can't undo. But there puts it back to there. Undo, 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 undo. There we go. And put that on the black and the fill. And the deform tool is also under tools. They're right beside each other. Warp and deform. Deform gives you 16 points, where warp only gives you 4. Holding the shift key will affect both opposing nodes there, if you will. So it'll get this corner and the opposite corner. Holding shift, it'll do the mirror function of whatever you're doing to it. But if you're not holding shift, it will only do that one side. And you can warp that around. And like I said, see how you're bending it over. It's like it's a solid page, a sheet, and you're wrapping that corner of the sheet down over the top of that one. But you can do funny things with it and warp those letters and create different shapes with it. Hold shift and bring those in. And that's the deform and the warp tool. And you can do it with text. You can do it with shapes or designs. If you want to do something twisted with one of your characters, it's a cool way to do it. But here, I'm going to just do a solid square. I'm going to delete this, and we'll do a solid block. And go to the deform tool. And see that it's, I guess actually that is, but if I bring that down, yeah, it's not quite working like I thought it was going to work, but you can see it does. That's kind of funky. Ain't nothing happening there. But the deform tool, you can get some pretty interesting shapes without having to draw them. There you go. Now we're starting to look like, who is it? Picasso or Van Gogh or I don't know. One of those weird guys. I ain't cutting my ear off after a night's stream, though. I can tell you that. So that's the warp and the deform tool. Let's see here. Questions and comments. Carl says, I saw a note that there was a LightBurn 1.08 version out, but my LightBurn's so I'm on 1.7.04. And let me just look. Let's see. Do Windows. See help. Check for updates. There is a newer version, 1.7.06. So I think I may have 06 on my laptop, but I just haven't done 06 on here yet. And the 1.8 may be out in beta, and you can probably download it because I think Chris said there's already one out there. You probably can go over to the LightBurn forum and download it if you want to. But I'm afraid of it when they're still in beta testing because they still aren't confident enough in it yet to release it to the masses. So there still might be some tweaks that need to be done to it. So I'll wait until it shows up in that updates before I go get them. Say no, I don't want that. Chicago Bob says Laura Mars might be able to help you with the eyes. I don't get that reference. I don't know. I'll have to Google Laura Mars. I don't know that reference. I'm sorry. It's a joke. I see the LOL, but I don't know Laura Mars. I have your in this house design setting beside me. It seems I saw the LightBurn was out. But in 1.8, it might be out there in beta. You may be able to go download it from the LightBurn forum website, maybe. 1.8 is at RC, so should be only a day or two unless something unexpected. Okay, yep. All right. Any questions or comments? Anybody want anything? I'll give it 8 minutes, and we're going to cut it at 2 hours. Any questions, comments, feedbacks, anything? Chicago Bob says The Eyes of Laura Mars, a great scary movie. Okay. I used to enjoy horror movies. I think when I liked some of the original Friday the 13th with with Jason. But then even Jason got a little bit too just gross and graphic. I think where I stopped with the horror movies was Nightmare on Elm Street. The first one or two, I was kind of like okay with it, but then I got just turned off on horror movies. Suspense, I enjoy. Like what was it? The first one or two Final Destinations? Those are really cool, especially since at the time I worked at an amusement park, and that was a great way to scare people as you're launching them off on the roller coaster, bringing up that Final Destination movie. That was really cool. Where's the lion? The lion, I never put it back on the shelf. It's right here beside of me. I've just been too lazy to go back up there and put it up. Carl, I wished I could, brother. I wished I could. Today, I did not work on the house today. I worked on getting this completed and ready for the stream. But mind you, I didn't start until about 10 this morning. I took a very long morning to get going. But I got a lot more work to do and no time. I knew this day was coming. I knew this day was coming 5 months ago. And I drug my butt, and now I'm paying the price. Now my back's against the wall, and it needed to be done last week. But this week, I've gotten more done this week than I have gotten done in 4 months. So I needed to be pushed. I have several t-shirts. I met several of them. I bought like a dozen of them because I liked it so much that I wanted to be able to wear it even when my shirt was dirty. And it says "Procrastinators Unite Tomorrow," and I've got half a dozen or more of those. Procrastinators Unite Tomorrow. All right. Wow. 16-hour 3D print finally finished. Yeah. I tell you what, man. How big is it, Chris? 16 hours. How big of a 3D in that 16-hour time frame? How large was the piece you printed? Yeah, and V's asking, what are you making? What is it, and how large is it? Bad spellers in the world untie. Bad spellers of the world untie. Yeah. Uh, it's a lithopane with 4 colors. I I don't know that. I mean, some of the, you know what? Uh, Thank you, Dale. 200 by 200. Wow. So it's relatively small. 200 by 200. You're a little over what, 4.5, not quite 5 inches. 16 hours. You know, a lot of the stuff that we do, I mean, these are cool and they're fun. And I can probably sell that for, 25 or 30 bucks finished and painted. But I've got the entire day making that thing today, designing it and putting it together, painting it. A lot of this stuff we do for the joy of doing it because we love it. And I just don't know that I could enjoy and love 3D printing enough to do something that's going to take 3/4 of a day for something this big. I just, I'm an impatient man. I want to see results. It's like this. This took me the better part of a day to complete, but not to cut out. Design it, then cut it out, and then once I got it cut out, put some finish on it, spray it, seal it, done it, put it in the assembly and all that. I'm being busy the whole time doing something versus going, are you done printing yet? How about now? Can you print some more? Faster, please. Are you done yet? I can't. I'm impatient. I can't watch and wait. I'd have to have 4 printers going all the time, and then 16 hours to do that, and knowing your craftsmanship and what all you like to do, it's probably really neat and gorgeous and pretty to look at. But what could you possibly sell it for if you were going to sell it? Yeah, it's got to be just for the love of it. Got to be. Yeah, post a pic in the group. Yeah, yeah, that would be awesome. Yeah, Greg, we're still here, but we're getting ready to sign off. I said I'm gonna cut it at 2 hours. We're at 1:58 and 45 seconds. Carl says lift paints are cool, but never tried multicolored. Yeah, well, hopefully, Carl, he'll post a picture in the Facebook group. So 7x7, 200, 200 by 200. 114.3 is 4.5 inches. I knew that. 114.3 millimeters is 4.5 inches. My brain was not engaged. So I had my sizen off. My sizer was broke. Dave says it took me 5 days to do Disney Castle 3D. Yeah. Yeah, I don't have the patience for that. I just don't. Well, boys and girls, I do thank everybody who contributed to the stream tonight, both in questions, comments, feedback, expressing your interest and your learning, how much you've learned. And let's turn off Dave. Sorry, Dave, I had to turn you off. And for all of the super thanks, thank you for your contributions and your support. Huge shout out to my patrons, guys. If you have been on the fence and you haven't signed up for the patron, go over to the Patreon page. Do not select the free tier. I do not share anything with the free tier except for the post that's saying I'm not sharing anything with the free tier. I think I did one time. I did not turn on a free tier. Patreon did that automatically, and I can't shut it off as long as people are signing up on the free tier. So don't sign up for that. And as soon as everybody's out of it, I'm going to turn it off. Bronze, silver, or gold. Bronze gets 60% off all of my digital files on hobowithwood.com. Silver gets 80% off, and gold gets 100% off. Gold is the best deal going because I learned from YouTube University how to do this. And there are some really good creators on YouTube, but I don't know of another YouTube creator who's doing at least one new file every week and putting it out there on the website. And and my patrons were fussing at me because my patrons know what's going on behind the scenes. I don't share everything with you guys because you're not privileged. But my patrons know everything that's going on behind the scenes and know what's going on in my world. And they've been hollering at me, take a break. You ain't got to do this. But this is my job. This is how I make my money. This is how I earn my living. This is how I keep these lights on. So I'm not doing this for my entertainment. I'm doing this to feed my face. And if I'm idle and I'm not creating designs, then I'm not selling designs. The patrons, especially the gold, they're getting them for free. They're not spending any money with me above. Well, I take that back. Majority of them don't. There's still some that to go above and beyond and do ridiculous help. And they are beloved supporters. But if I don't put out a new design, I don't have it on the website, then even the bronze or the silver don't have something to spend money on or buy. And then the non-patrons aren't spending money. I've got to keep files going. I've got to keep it going. The wheel has to constantly stay turning. So I'm putting out new content as fast as I can on designs when my life will allow me. But even when life doesn't allow me, I force myself to put out a new design. I don't know of another creator on YouTube that's putting out as many pieces as I am every week, every month. So it is worth your investment if you are a laser designer creator to become a gold patron and get my files for free. You still learn how to do this. You can learn, watch the videos and learn how to do them. But man, the time savings and just being able to download them and not have to do them yourself. So go gold. Go gold. I need your support. And if you go gold, you'll understand. You can go back and watch. And right now you go sign up and go gold and get the last year's worth of videos or more and see. And there's some files on there that you're not going to see on the website or other places. And art libraries. I share my art library, a new art library with the gold patrons every month. There's a new art library that I share. So, unfortunately, you can't sign up on the 1st of March and get January and February and March. I take down January and February so that if you want a new library every month, you need to be a gold member that month. So, in fact, just look at the comments. Look at the comments. Dave's go gold. Go for the gold. Gold is the best investment. It really is. I would not steer. In fact, another thing you won't hear from me on my channel is you're not going to hear me. This is the greatest brush that has ever been invented since brushes were invented. And the link for that is over here. I'm not going to push an item on every stream just to be selling you something. Uh, if I do offer you something, like I mentioned, those pins, I use them. They're on my website, and I use them every time I create something. Love them. Uh, but I'm not pushing you something all the time just to be pushing something. Uh, if I'm telling you about it, it's honestly in your best interest. If you know, I just recently went gold. It's a good deal. Uh, you cannot go wrong. Uh, I'm often told I am special. Is that a compliment or an insult? Chris, yes. Well, thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. And I'm just gonna get through these comments and we're gonna sign off here. There only one you, Steve. You number one. Well, there's a lot of really good content creators out there and a lot of good instructors out there, different personalities. And that's what makes the world interesting. If we were all the same and you went to the ice cream shop and you only had one flavor to choose from, we'd get tired of it really quick. So thank goodness for 31 flavors and all the different personalities out there, or else it would be a little bit old or get really old really quick. Yeah, Chris says just the art libraries are worth gold. One thing I do pride myself on is the art libraries I share are premium art libraries for LightBurn. I've got some LightBurn libraries that I got from a previous creator, and a lot of them are just junk. They're absolute garbage. And it's like, okay, you fill my libraries up with a whole bunch of stuff that's really useless. There's my stuff, it's premium stuff. On the art, well, even my files. I don't, like I said, I had the wall hanger created Monday, but I never shared it with anybody because I hadn't tested it yet. I won't share my files on my website until I've designed them myself. That's why when you go to the website and you look, there's an actual photograph of the actual piece, not a concept or a drawing or an artwork or a AI version of what it is. It's an actual piece because I've made it. Yep, gold. Oh yeah, but you know what, Kilroy, I help people who aren't patrons. I don't care if you're a patron or not. If you're on here and you've got a problem, you can contact me at hobowithwood@gmail.com, and I'm going to help anybody that needs it. I don't tell anybody no, and I don't ask anybody for money. I make them aware that there are options out there, but I don't charge for help. I enjoy helping folks. The art libraries are worth it for what we pay in gold. Yep. Mama always said I was special. Gold is number one. All right. Yep. Yeah, I will help you if you need help. And I do that. I help more folks who aren't patrons that are, because there's so many more of them that aren't. Can we request a gnome art library? Oh man, that would be, I mean, Craig, which I hadn't seen Craig in here tonight. Craig made a suggestion. In fact, those few of you here still here, Craig had asked me about a flower library for your what is it? You have a birth stone. I guess you have a birth flower. There's a flower for every month for your birthday. And Craig had suggested doing the flower library for each month. So it'd be a library with 12 flowers in it. And I was working on putting that together. But I could do some random gnomes. I wouldn't. The art library would be just a. It wouldn't be like that where it'd be all with all the multiple layers. But I could put together, 15 or 20 different random gnome shapes and have a gnome library. I'm not a big. I'm not a fan of gnomes. That was a request. Uh, so and that's how most of my designs come to be. Is people ask for, can you do this for me? Yeah, I can do that. Can you do that? Yeah, I can do that. No idea how I'm going to do it, but yeah, I can do that. All right, guys, that's it. I hope you guys have had a wonderful week. I hope you did have a really good Valentine's Day. Again, happy birthday, V. I hope you had a very special day. I hope you were treated twice as special for Valentine's and your birthday. That's almost as it's not quite as bad, but almost as bad as a Christmas birthday. But if you're single, I guess it wouldn't matter on Valentine's Day because you don't really celebrate either one. uh, uh, don't know. But I hope your day was special. I do. So again, thank you guys, and we'll see you next week. Next week will be 3 p.m. Eastern time. Next week we're going to get back in, barring any unforeseen anything's out of my control. I'm going to try and get back on the 3 p.m. Because that's a Saturday that I'd have a conflict with another channel. We don't want that. Yeah, Peggy, please watch the replay. And because there was a lot of good stuff in this one. You guys have a good night, and we'll see you next week. God bless.